Hey guys, we had such a blast doing this show that we left all of the bloopers in. It's in a different format than I usually do for Spirit-Centered Business, but you will absolutely love it. Enjoy.
Bring up something too about my past as a wilderness guide.
This is a wilderness guide.
Why are you laughing? Are we on? We're not on.
You're not. We are.
Oh, we are. Woo!
Because it's not your past. You still are.
That's true. I am. Well, so yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
So you're the boss. So.
All right. Behave yourself.
Good
now.
to be with you.
Good to be with me. Okay.
I'm glad to be here. I'm very excited to be with somebody as wild and crazy as you.
Awesome sauce.
Yeah.
Thanks. Hey guys, we're excited that you're here too. Welcome to Spirit-Centered Business. This is my spiritual brother.
I'm your guru.
My brother.
I'm
This is Tawlks, and
That's a complete sentence, by the way.
that's
It's a complete sentence,
Tawlks.
and I have a cousin who's more famous than me. His name's Ted. Okay, well, you said you wanted.
Welcome to the Spirit-Centered Business Podcast, where we blend the spiritual with the practical for supernatural results. Now, here is your host, Bralynn Newby.
You said you wanted to have a little fun at the beginning.
I do.
Okay.
However, I have a couple announcements to make. So
Okay.
before we get into
Okay, go for
too
it.
much, okay.
I can't wait.
All right, you guys. Thank you. I'm using a different camera to obviously a different setup, and I'm like, okay, where are you? I think you're right there. Okay, there you are. So, hey guys, I am so excited that the Academy is finally open. It's been a while, but it's finally open. And I'm also excited. You guys may have heard me mention, but my cruise is ready
Oh.
to launch. Ah! Yeah, did you
Is
know
there a
that?
name for the cruise? I remember
It's-
you've been talking about a cruise for this is a great example of somebody who is making it happen, but you've been talking about that for a while.
Finally, I
And sometimes
know.
it takes a while.
Well, God gave me the idea for it it was either 16 or 17. 16.
Yeah,
16.
you shared
16,
that with me.
yeah. So anyway, it's SCB, Spirit-Centered Business, SCB at sea, inside out. Because we got to deal with our inside stuff in order for it to come out
I'm all
well
about
in our
that.
business. Yeah.
And so there's a lot of openings now, and the prices are low because of the coronavirus.
Oh! Would you stop?
Oh, yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
Okay. We're just going to roll with
When
it.
is this?
This is September 12th.
Oh, you're
through
good.
the-
You'll be good by then. We'll all be flying high then.
September
good.
12th through the
Or-
19th. It's coming, flying. I'm flying into Miami. It's
Okay.
launching out of Miami, and it's
Okay.
going to be the Caribbean, and we're going to go to, I don't remember if this is the order, but we're going to go to San Juan, Puerto Rico, St. Kitts, Grand Turks, and someplace else. And anyway, look for that, and it's really going to be a life-changing cruise. It's really a retreat.
Yeah.
We're going to get work done. We're going to get
Good.
work done on our business and get some inner healing work done.
Awesome.
So I think that's enough announcements. Let's officially
All right.
begin. Okay, so Mr. Doug Tawlks is a wilderness adventure guy.
That's where I learned a lot of what I'm going to talk about.
I
so.
know. Yeah, he's also. You're not a pastor anymore, are you?
I am a pastor. Not I don't pastor in the
Pastor-ish?
I don't pastor in the traditional context, but the organization I run is I do a lot of pastoring, and I love doing it because I don't have all the church rules to deal with.
No rules.
Yeah, church rules. I'm not saying there aren't rules, but anyway.
Yeah. Okay, so it's the Life Bridge is where he is counseling and helping people.
The
with
Life Bridge and also heart-to-heart marriges.
heart-to-heart marriages.
The best way to
yes.
find me is to Google my name, though, because
Doug Tawlks, Tawlks, and I'm going to have all of that information in the show notes.
Yeah.
So, Doug is also was my co-host on Risky Faith TV. We had a lot of fun with that.
we did.
Didn't we? In fact, you know what I should do?
People are still joining Risky Faith TV. Did you know that?
That's awesome.
They're still liking it. It hasn't been a show in like 2 years.
I know, right?
Or a year and a half, but anyway.
You know what? What I should do for the promo for the cover? Remember that confused look that
Yes.
you and Guy had.
Yes.
Let's do that. I'll do that for the promo
No.
for this show.
For this show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
That was a great look.
That was a great
That was
one.
a great look.
And we had a really good trailer too. Okay, I'll put the bumper after the bumper of
Okay.
this. I'll put it at the end because it was a really great,
Oh,
fun
that's
little.
a great idea. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, that was
You have
Risky
one
Faith
once in a
TV.
while, so. Can't wait to go on your cruise
Yeah.
and do some inner healing work.
Yes, exactly. Okay, well, let's talk about risk though, because you are the person. By the way, Doug is also. We went out shooting together.
Oh, that's right. Not too long, very recently we went out shooting.
Yeah, because he needed to get
Small
his
arms training.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he needed to get his concealed carry permit, and I'm one of the coaches on the range, and I needed to brush up on my shooting, and so we
You
went
need to
out
post
and
that
had a
video.
good time. I know.
Of you shooting.
Yeah, but anyway, so
The squirt. No, you didn't shoot any animals.
shooting the animals.
Yeah.
I didn't shoot. I shot a barrel at 75 yards.
You did really good on
That
that.
was-
On that. That was very impressive.
I shocked myself.
You actually
I
did
was-
good. You were better at it
He-
than me. That's why you were helping
You
me.
were good. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, so that was fun. But what was I talking about? Oh,
Risk.
the commitment move.
the
That's what I
commitment
want to
move.
talk.
Oh, okay.
Because I
Okay.
always think
No, that's
about
a great,
you.
That's a great opener.
Yeah, I always think about you when I'm thinking about business, especially like this cruise. For crying out loud, this is a big deal.
Yes.
And I had to make a
Oh yeah.
commitment move.
Probably made several.
Yeah, and every day there's another decision that's going to be, impact people's lives or my finances. It's like
Oh,
I had to
yeah.
put money down on
Yeah,
this thing, right?
yeah.
So you were just the best person that I could think about to talk about taking risks. But you know what? I'm going to need my pad back because I want to
You
take
are.
show notes. Do you want to take those?
Oh, I don't need
pages
that.
out?
That says commitment moves. on
That
it.
does say commitment
I don't
moves.
need
You
that.
did it.
I'm
But
good.
in order for me to make great show notes for the peeps, I got to take notes.
Okay. Go
Okay.
for it.
All right. So
I'll just drink
You
my coffee
tell-
while you take notes.
you are not drinking coffee. We're drinking water, and we have
Because
to cover up.
you have
the
to be
name.
hydrated
Exactly.
when you're on this show. That's right. We do have to cover up the name.
Cover up the name of the.
Ooh, I didn't
Yep.
cover it up right there.
So, so show it
I
again.
didn't, well, I was just trying to see if it was covered up. You're gonna have to do this little blurry thing right there, right, where you blur it out.
All right, talk about risk before these people.
You want me to talk about what commitment moves are?
I wanna
mean,
talk-
You kind of
yeah.
threw that out there.
I do. Because it's so important.
It's a good way to
in
kind of
life
set the
and-
foundation.
Yeah. I'm just going to sit back and
The
let you talk. How about
definition. No, you're not. The definition of. Well, let me give the definition first, and then I'll give kind of where it comes from. The
Yeah.
definition of a commitment move is you end up in a situation. It could be any situation in your life related that requires risk. It could be in business, in a relationship, anything that just learning how to communicate your feelings more. But anything that requires risk, a commitment move is when you actually make the move in the direction of risking. And you're usually afraid. There's usually some kind of anxiety driving it. So it's called a commitment move because you're making a move. You're making a move in the direction of taking a risk, and there's no guarantee. That's why it's called a commitment move. There's no guarantee that it's going to work. And that evolved out of rock climbing because I used to be do a lot of rock climbing instructing, and we used the wilderness and we used rock climbing and rappelling to teach people how to overcome their fears. And there's a point on the rock where you, especially when you first start, you first start climbing, you don't realize how many handholds and footholds actually work. So your mind and brain you're afraid, and you're telling yourself, there's no way that handhold, that foothold is going to hold me up. And when you make the move and you trust that handhold, you trust that foothold, that's a commitment move. You might fall and the rope would catch you, or it might work. And the wonderful thing about making that commitment move in a spiritual context is that you always have a rope if you're rock climbing, which is a smart thing to do.
Let's keep having.
Those people don't live very long that don't use ropes. And so once you make that commitment move, you learn all kinds of things. When you push through that fear, I call it the wall of fear. When you push through that wall of fear and make that move, and imagine you're pulling yourself up on that rock, and once you push through that wall of fear, you're actually conquering that fear. And then you learn that the rope will actually catch you if you fall. You also, sometimes you learn that the foothold or the handhold actually works, and you move up a little bit farther. Both those are valuable to know. So learning something by failing and learning something by succeeding, they're both valuable to know, because you're going to learn something.
Yeah.
And it's important to know that whatever you put in place as safety factors can protect you.
That's really good. How do we relate that to business? You know, there's so many things where we don't know if something's going to work or not, but if we never try it,
Yeah.
we're going to stay in the position of not knowing if it works or not.
I think, here's how I'm going to answer that question first. I think you
Okay.
have to be, I think the more experience you have at being a risk taker in every area of your life, not just in your business, but in every area of your life. So the question becomes, are you committed to being a risk taker? Do you understand the value of taking risks? There's a thing in insurance, they call it being, or risk averse. If you're risk averse, that means you're a safety seeker, you're trying to be careful all the time, and your main concern is, how do I not fail?
It's like in trading.
Yes.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
investments.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
So the more you risk, the better you can understand the instinctive part of when do I risk in different ventures in the context of your business and your business relationships. So if you take any area where you are feeling anxious and fearful about, it could be just dealing with a worker that's very difficult, or it could be making a decision about, do I invest here, do I in this part of the business, whatever the area is. So I'm going to use rock climbing as an example. Whatever the area is, you got to know what your anchors are. So they use rock climbing anchors in rock climbing, and you set an anchor in a place, and you want to make sure the anchor is going to hold, just like in sailing or with a boat. We use anchors in every area of life. So you got to have your anchors identified when you're risking anyway, because we don't just risk willy-nilly.
Right.
We need to have those things identified. And in business, sometimes those anchors are, an example of an anchor would be, before I take this risk, I'm going to talk to 3 of the wisest people I know about it. That's an
Right.
anchor.
Right.
Because we always, part of what gives us success and wisdom is the counselors we keep.
Absolutely.
You know,
Market research. And,
yeah. So what are my anchors? You know, one of my anchors is a huge one, is just my physical health.
Yes.
And so knowing if I am struggling in an area of my physical health, knowing what it's going to take. First of all, in order to improve in that area, you have to know something about that area. So I tell people that all the time. If you have a problem, you need to know something about the problem. And I always ask people this: have you studied your problem? If it's depression, anxiety, we have an epidemic of fear and anxiety. And we have high, crazy levels of anxiety in people in our country, starting at children all the way through adults.
Yeah.
And I ask people all the time, what do you know about anxiety? And most people say, I don't know anything about it. You haven't even read an article on it? No. You have to know something. This is an anchor point. You have to know something about what's wrong with you to overcome it.
Yeah, and you know that's part of my story too.
Yeah.
Is that have a lot of fear and stuff going on, and even physical stuff that stopped me from doing my business for a while
Yes,
there. Yeah.
yes.
And we don't understand how much we live under it, and like all of the stories and everything we've made up and protected ourselves from
Yes.
feeling, and all of that stuff.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
So we're talking about anchors. Another one that's really important is environment.
Yeah.
So our environment has a huge impact on our neurological health, which has a huge impact on our physical health. And one of the ways you heal your brain is by the environment you live in. And the environment you live in has to do with relationships you have. It has to do with how much you get outside and enjoy, the outside, and how much water you drink. It has to do with a lot.
Yeah.
But the core of the environmental the core, the real anchor point of environment is the relationships you keep.
That's so good.
So I use the target when I'm talking about relationships. The center of the target is called the bullseye. Most people have maybe 4 to 6 at the most. I'll say 3 to 6. I'm talking about outside of close family and friends. Some people don't even. So that target represents the people you trust the most. So like, I don't want to keep going back to rock climbing, but when you first climb a rock and you've never climbed a rock before, it's a vertical granite slab. It's not like going to the gym. And you first climb that, you don't know who you can trust. You got an instructor there. That might be me. You might barely know me. They're telling you they're giving you information about how to get up that rock. That's why relationships are important. Who in your life is feeding you information? And is it bringing courage to you to take risks, and to take wise risks too? Is it feeding you and encouraging you in that way? Because messages are sent indirectly. The most powerful messages that we experience are sent indirectly. It's one thing if I say to you, Bralynn, are you crazy? You're going on a cruise? Well, what if I just got all anxious about it the first time you told me, and I started going, well, what about the coronavirus? I keep bringing that up, but what about the weather? And have you checked the weather forecast for September? And because we have people like that in our lives.
Yeah.
I'm sending you a message about something that could happen,
Right.
but I'm sending you a message about that is saying to you, you better be very careful out there because you don't want to fail and mess up.
Yeah.
Which is, you can't be a risk taker and think like that. You can be careful, but failing and having it fall apart isn't the primary factor or driving, because that's rooted in fear. And fear will always lie to you and tell you you can't handle failure. See, that's one of the lies of fear. You can't handle failure. This is so important what I'm talking about right now because people.
It's huge.
So I heard.
Like failure is fatal.
Failure is.
It's such a lie, but we believe it, right?
And the thing about failure that why it's so nasty, the fear of failure. Failure's not nasty.
Right. No.
It's the fear of failure.
Right.
Why it's so tricky is because most people, and when I say most people, I've been doing this for a long time. I heard Dr. Daniel Amen. I don't know if you know, he's a famous neuro.
Yeah.
He said this on the radio today. He said, for 30 years, every day of my life, I've been looking at the brain and doing things with the brain and studying it and that type of thing. And it hit me because I have often said, I have counseled and prayed with thousands of people. I've often said that. And I'm not saying it because I want people to be impressed with me. I'm saying it because I want people to listen to me. I have been looking at the way people think and imagine and what goes on in there, because I get into people's heads. And so I know things and understand things about how people's brains, not just their brains, the physical part, but how we think in certain patterns and we go in certain directions. You want an example of that?
I do.
For example, okay, so I heard him say that and I thought, I've been doing that with risk, with the way people think for 30 years. Not every day, but probably 3 days a week at least. But
when you're not climbing
thousands of people. Right. So an example of that would be, and this is just something that I kind of came up with to help people understand this, but we go through a process in our minds where we hit a Y in the road over and over again. And one thing that will help you remember this is Robert Frost's poem, which he talks about. I came to a fork in the road, and one was well-traveled and one wasn't. We come to forks over and over again every day, and I'm going to talk about this in the training, by the way, and get more specific in the academy.
Perfect.
I'm going to talk about it more in the academy. So we come to a fork, so I'm going to put my fingers up. There's a bad example of a fork. It's a fork in the road. One direction will take us in the direction where we are being influenced by fear and trying to be careful and trying to be cautious because we believe we believe in something that's not true, and that's that we can actually protect ourselves and we can be more secure by playing it safe. Okay, so we come to that fork in the road. So an example would be, I'm thinking about going to graduate school, like when I went to graduate school to get my master's degree. my natural tendency is to go down. I always think of the left. I go to the left. It's the more safe, and I start thinking things like, okay, well, how am I going to afford this?
Mm-hmm.
I start thinking of those are all important questions.
Well, yeah, they are,
But it's down the left, and I start thinking about, and if I sit there at that fork in the road for very long, and I'm looking to the left, and I'm listening to all these fear-driven thoughts, that's why you need to know who's been speaking into your life about fear or risk.
yeah, because you'll hear their voice.
Yeah. And once you start heading down that path, it becomes more familiar to you. So the next time you come to the fork in the road, you just turn left and you go. So that's what I want to challenge you, and I want to get into more in the academy is, which way do you tend to go? Okay, so to the right is the road less traveled. To the right is less control, less ability to define things, and that is very scary to people that are risk averse.
Yeah.
It's intimidating. To somebody who is committed, so here's one of my core values, to living a life of adventure, it's appealing to go down that road that's less traveled. So that's the thing that I would like people to get to in their lives, where when they come to that fork, that Y in the road, that it would stir up excitement and energy in them when they look to the road less traveled, and instead of thinking about all those things and talking themselves out of it, they look down there and they see the obstacles and they go, that's probably where I should go.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And so here's a little cool thing that I just thought of recently, because this concept was taught to me many years ago about we're either going to vote no and take the safe route, or we're going to vote yes and take the adventurous route. And I realized this recently because I was speaking on this recently, that fork in the road is a Y, and it stands for yes. Yes to the adventure. Yes to the risk. And
Yes.
it helps you remember that.
It does. It does. And, a lot of people say yes and figure it out later. And so, especially if you're living by faith, or, God calls you to do something and you're shaking in your boots about it, but you have to say yes and be obedient.
There are so many times and if entrepreneurs, people who are growing, even their organizations, they're taking risks.
Absolutely.
And some people, a lot of them are taking risks, they don't even know they're taking them. They've gotten so used to it that they get up in the day and they make decisions and they do things, because we want to get to the place where taking risks is more exciting than it is scary.
Yeah.
And we're not saying you should throw out planning. We're not saying you should throw out organization. But if you want a spirit-centered organization, you have to factor God into it. And the Bible says that He wants to lead us and guide us into all things. Mm-hmm. So if you're coming from somebody whose core value is to live a life of meaningful adventures, the sub-core principle of that is make plans and pray that God interrupts them.
That's going to be a quotable. Make plans and pray that God interrupts them. That's really good.
Which is how I think, because when God interrupts, and learn how to recognize when He's interrupting those plans, because I believe this with all my heart. When we make plans, and I know people that they plan to the detail, and then they cannot get off that plan. They cannot change from that plan.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe you said that, because that's the third part of my book, Planning to Profit.
Yes.
It's like, get out of planning.
Yes.
Planning,
yes.
planning,
Yes.
thinking about planning and over planning and
saturation.
into profit, right? Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Awesome. Another thing that I was thinking about when you were saying that is inviting yourself, because I know that
yes.
Yeah, go down that road.
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up. I feel good when I think about that. So one of the things that when you're an adventure seeker as opposed to being a safety seeker, adventure seekers, everything doesn't have to make sense to them. They follow their hearts, and there's things in your heart that you will get nudges in your heart, and they're gut, primal nudges in your heart. And I learned that years ago, and I oftentimes would, and she used the phrase, I would just, instead of waiting to be invited, I would just invite myself. I mean, I've been to weddings where I wasn't invited because I thought, why didn't they invite me? I know they want me there because when I'm there, it's going to be more fun. And they just forgot. Maybe it didn't get to my mailbox as I was traveling around the country, whatever. And I just think, I'm going to go. And nobody's
Who
ever
does that?
And I bring a gift. Nobody's ever sent me away, right? So.
Well, it is more fun when you're there. Come on.
so I'm going to have fun. So anyway. This thing about inviting yourself, it really hit me one time because there was a family that we were getting to know, and we would just call them up and say we're going to come over. You know, we don't do that as much now because the culture's changed a little bit, but we would call them up and say, hey, we're out front. Can we come in? We would just show up. We would invite ourselves. And
who's we? First of all.
Well, I was the one driving it, but my wife would come with me sometimes. Because it was a couple. It was a couple. They became our best friends.
Okay.
So she told me years later, she said, I don't know why you kept showing up on my front porch. She said that to me. And she said, but we were going through hell.
Oh.
Our lives were falling apart. And if it hadn't been for you showing up over and over and over again, I don't know what would have happened to us.
Wow.
So this idea, maybe this could be another whole show, but this idea of it's a risky thing to do to invite yourself, and you get really good at it after a while. You know, I mean, you find ways to kind of get in there. You know, I don't know how to say it. You just maybe drop hints or whatever. But
we're so opposite.
What's driving us to do it is something in our gut. It's something in our heart that's saying we have to go connect with these people with this situation. I think even in business, there are times we could be missing critical decisions because we do a lot of things intuitively. So if you overplan, you squeeze intuition out of it.
Yeah, an opportunity. Yeah.
Right. Well, especially opportunity that could be driven by intuition.
Mm-hmm.
That voice. And when I say intuition, I'm talking about sort of a combination of the way God made me combined with how the Spirit leads me.
Mm-hmm.
Because I said this, I remember the first time I said this, I was teaching at William Jessup University, and I said, God will always speak to us through our learning style, what's called our multiple intelligences.
That's really good.
And I kind of blurted it out, like before I even thought about it, but everybody went, ooh. And so I thought,
say
it must
it
be
again.
good.
I'm like,
God will always speak to us through our learning styles.
Yeah.
So one way to think about that is God speaks to us through how He designed us, because our learning style is part of our design.
Sure.
And so He designs each one of us like a masterpiece. And He speaks through us because He appeals to that part of us that He made that He knows is going to care about what He's trying to lead us into.
That's a good point. Yeah.
It's not always about something coming from out here. Sometimes I think a lot of times it comes from in here.
Right.
And so it's very important to know. Now that brings up another issue. Know how you're designed.
Yes.
It's very important to know how you're designed and to completely celebrate it. You know, if you're good at writing, if you're good at speaking, if you're good at, it doesn't matter, if you're good at building houses, it's important to celebrate that. And one of the ways we celebrate that, our design, which is our identity, is to say, I am good at building houses. To put that word I am in front of it.
That's good. That is really good. I am the message architect.
That's right. And you're good at it.
And I am
You're
good at it.
amazing at it. So everybody's amazing at some things.
Yeah.
But most of us spend too much time doing the things we're not even good at it. And it chews up our time. It sucks our time out.
Guilty, totally guilty.
Yeah. So part of it is finding something that happened in my life in the last couple of years was I made a decision that I was going to stop just spending a lot of time doing things that I'm not good at. And we have to get things done. There's always anything that we're involved in, it's going to require getting things done that we're not good at.
Right.
So I made a decision. And this was a risky thing for me. I'm going, instead of letting fear drive me and go spend all this time. Are you hearing me?
I'm hearing you.
Are you picking up what I'm throwing down?
I am picking up what you're throwing down.
So I had something happen today. This is very fresh. I'm going to give a today example. So there are things that always will sit there in your organization that you are dying to get done, and fear will get you working on them when you're terrible at it. It's why some things fail, because we're spending 80% of our time on the stuff we are lousy at, and then by the end product is not very good.
Okay, here's my call.
Okay,
to
wait,
action.
let me finish.
Okay,
Well, you want to do your... Let me give you this example.
Okay, go ahead.
So there's this thing that there's several things in an organization that I want to see happen. I mean, for every reason they should happen.
Right.
And I decided in the last couple of years, I'm going to stop forcing things and trying to make them happen. I'm going to put my time and energy into the things that are happening, and then I'm going to pray and ask God to bring the right people. And I think that's very important, to actually ask Him, because believe it or not, I'm terrible at that. I'm terrible at asking God for things. I'm just terrible at it.
Really?
Yes.
Oh.
But I've been getting better at that.
Invite yourself into his storeroom.
I don't know
and say,
why.
I'm gonna need this.
Yes.
And
So
I
anyway,
need this.
I am getting better at this, and so I'm not making this up. Last night at 2:00, I woke up. I was having a hard time sleeping, and I started thinking a little bit about some things that I want to happen. Hey, by the way, we don't feel good when things aren't getting done, do we?
Oh my gosh.
It's not a good feeling.
It hurts.
And that bad feeling drives us to do things a lot of times.
Yeah.
But it was last night, and I prayed, and I said, God, I need somebody, the right person to do this. And I started praying this way 2 years ago, and we have probably 3 or 4 times more volunteers in our organization than we did a couple years ago. It was a real God moment for me, where he woke me up again early in the morning. He said, stop focusing on all the things that aren't working and aren't progressing, and start thanking me for all. Now this was for me. Start thanking me for all the things that are working. Mm-hmm. And I was asking Him at that moment for help in this area.
Yeah.
And His answer was not giving me wisdom on how to fix it. He didn't tell me how to fix the problem, about going and working on the problem. He told me to fix myself.
Yeah.
And be thankful. And it was from that time 2 years ago that our because what I was wanting was more people and the right people, and we have grown dramatically.
Yeah.
So last night I prayed a similar prayer, but it was different because I was just asking the Lord. And somebody called me, somebody texted me that I trained and mentored 10 years ago. This morning, texted me. It was at a coffee shop here in town. I went and met with her, and we both knew it was a divine appointment. And there are some things in our organization that I believe she's going to magically put her hand to. Not magically, because she's gifted that way, and I believe there's going to be new fruit in that area.
Well, what I was going to say earlier is I have been praying for the right tech team and the right assistant to come along, because I've gone through, people that just weren't quite right, and I'm like, and at the moment, you think, oh my gosh, this is going to be so perfect, and then it doesn't work. So, still waiting for that, and I have been praying. Anyway, throwing it out there.
And I want to just say this real quick about what you said there. It's very important for us to realize, because we may hate tech, and this is about design and honoring the design and how God's made other people. Yeah. There's other people that love it. It's hard for us to believe that. But if we don't believe that God has made some people that way, we will not get them in our organization, and we will miss
because
them.
I feel bad giving someone a task that I wouldn't want to do, but really they want to do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I get it.
Yeah.
I've gotten over that, but I'm fearful to take another risk and have another bad experience.
Yes.
And that's where I've been, because I spent a lot of money and had to redo stuff.
Yes.
And that's why I'm just like, it's almost like gas brakes. I know I need somebody to help me, and I know this has to get done, and it wakes me up in the middle of the night that it's not done, and it's hanging over my head that it's not done, but I can't just
there's not a black and white paint by numbers way of making all this happen. But especially when money's involved, it's always riskier, it's always scarier, but there is something in the thinking pattern of, I can't afford to have another failure. I've had people say that to me.
well, that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
You didn't say it exactly that way, but that's what I was hearing.
But that's yeah, exactly.
And I would say this to people: you can't afford not to fail again.
That's good.
And
That'll be a quotable, another one. You can't afford not to fail again.
And a lot of business people, because they risk far enough, and there's a lot of very successful business people that have lost millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah.
I have a friend that way. He goes, I'm really good at making money, I'm not good at keeping it. And he loses it, he just goes out and makes it again.
Yeah.
So that's something he figured out about himself because he was out there risking. He may not have ever figured that out.
That's funny.
He could have just stopped right there and said, I'm going to go work for UPS.
Yeah. Oh, that's another thing too. Entrepreneurs, oh my gosh, it's a huge battle to get up and keep taking those risks over and over instead of just, I gotta go get a job. You know, I get a 9-to-5, a regular paycheck, I want to have that money. You know, it's like, oh, but you have to keep believing that dream that's inside of you, and you have to keep just believing that something's going to give, something's going to happen, the breakthrough's coming, just take another risk, right?
Yeah, and you know, there are some people that I think even for a season they're supposed to do that 9 to 5, and maybe their whole lives, but for a season they are, because God takes all of us through something to bring us to the point where we get to the realization of what it is, you know, what's right for us.
Well, I know that I learned a lot of skills while I was in corporate, obviously. I mean, I managed multi-million-dollar construction projects for some of the largest companies in the U.S. I'm really good with working with big numbers.
Yeah.
So that's why my clients can come to me and I can handle their big number stuff.
But that is a really good, powerful example of knowing something about a strength. There are people who could be in your situation, because I had a similar thing where I had a similar realization and this was several years ago, but I realized I was really good at helping people reach their potential. Okay, really good at that. And I realized I wasn't that good at helping me reach my potential.
Oh, I know. It's hard for yourself, isn't it?
Yes, but it's similar to what you're saying. You're really good at managing other people or organizations with a lot of money, but you may not. I'm not saying you're not with yourself, but I'm saying the question that comes out of that sometimes is, well, I want money too to manage.
I know, right?
Okay, but that's sort of like my thing was, well, I want to reach my potential.
Yeah.
And I was sort of like, and I wasn't really talking to God, but He talked to me through that. In that moment, He said, you reach your potential every time you help somebody reach their potential.
Yes.
And that was huge for me.
Yeah. You reach your potential every time you help somebody reach their potential. Yeah. That's really good.
And it's the same thing with, I would apply it to you or any area of business, is if we are reaching our potential in the work we're doing, there's going to be monetary gain from it.
Yeah. I'm really excited to, I'm going to be working with another coach, and I haven't worked with a coach now for several years. I spent tens of thousands of dollars when I retrained and hired coaches and went through programs and all of that when I came out of corporate, just to start my job and to start, you know, getting into this new industry that I really didn't know about, but it took the same skills that I had, you know, team building and project management and, you know, budgeting and scheduling and putting all of the pieces of puzzles together. It's the same thing, just a different industry, right? So I'm excited right now.
Yeah, that's exciting to hear that.
What?
No, I'm feeling that excitement.
I know.
What do you mean, what?
What? I'm excited to be jumping back into coming under a brilliant coach again, so that I can really get stretched, take risks. Yeah. But it's going to up-level me and up-level my business, and I'm excited to do it. It's a frightening thing, and I went through a little bit of a trauma making the decision, because it's like I knew it had to be made.
Risk trauma?
It's risk trauma. I don't know. Well, I went, you know what happened actually? I went through grieving, a grieving process.
That's good.
Yeah, because it's like I can't stay where in my comfort zone and in the status quo. I've got to let that go, and so I'm grieving that my cushy pillow and my safety blanket, you know.
That's interesting. So you're grieving the loss of that? Is that what you're saying?
Well,
The
yeah,
cushy
because
and
because now I've got to get up level, and I've got to let go of some things and toughen my skin, and it's time for Bralynn
So,
to move on.
can I ask you a question?
In front of God and everybody?
What do you grieve? What do you think you would grieve more? Giving up that cushy, I call it that the in-between spot. You can call it whatever you want. Or would you grieve more missing the adventure by staying there? That's really important for people to think about that.
Well, it's. I understand what you're going. It's slightly different for me. For me, it's not necessarily the adventure. Yes, I would miss the adventure, but bigger than that is missing the impact that I can have.
Well, that is the adventure.
If I'm staying small, I'm not able to help people, and then if I can't transform their lives, they can't transform the lives that they're called to transform.
The way, I don't think we're saying anything different.
No, it's just adventure's a good
when
word.
I hear cushy, that's what I've been in that in between place. And in the beginning, sometimes what I call that the in between seasons, and and that's a part of life. And sometimes we need the rest and the cushy, and we need the oasis, and we need that. But there's a point where we cross past the need for that, and we start getting hungry, and we start getting restless again.
Like Les Brown says, you gotta stay hungry.
And I would say that we're always hungry for something, but I think it's very important, especially for risk takers, to also be hungry for silence, stillness, and being in the presence of God.
That's
because if you're
true.
just risking all the time and you're just feeding that part of you, you're gonna crash at some point.
Right, because you're living on adrenaline.
Yeah, you're living off of the risk adrenaline.
Yes, exactly. And actually, even I was just talking to myself the other day. It happens. After I did. It's been beautiful. It's February and it's beautiful outside, and I did an outdoor training session.
Oh, nice.
And it was the first one of the season, and outdoor, it's just so exciting, and I love it, and you're breathing fresh air, and you're actually running up real hills. It's not a treadmill at an angle.
Wow.
And it's like you're doing some stuff, and I went down and I did my push-up. I did all of this stuff. Anyway, when I got done, I'm talking to my heart. I'm like, okay, adrenaline, you can let go now. You've done your job, and it's okay to let go, because at that I was like so pumped, and you know how it is, and lactic acid, you're free to release, and don't hang out in my muscles and make me sore tomorrow. You know what I mean? Because we just get so jazzed, and I realize I'm really addicted to speed. I've told you this before, and this is a dirty little secret. I literally get depressed when I have to slow down and take an exit off the highway.
So
it's weird.
That's I'm gonna start analyzing you here. I'm very tempted to do that. But let me say something about, maybe we could kind of wrap it up here a little bit.
Yes, absolutely.
One of the things that I recently realized is, if you look at the totality of Scripture, Old and New Testament, it's full of risk takers and adventure seekers. Mm-hmm. One of the biggest risk takers of all time was Jesus Christ. He trusts us, he puts trust in us to carry out his mission and change the world. And God allowed his son to take on the form of a frail human being. So there's huge risks in all of what that he did. But if you go clear back to some of the best Old Testament and New Testament stories, you have people who are risking sometimes to the point of death. And if you take another glance over those people, most of those people were committed to and faithful to being in the presence of God and being still, one of the examples that I like is there were Joshua sat outside the tent where Moses would go in and talk to God, and Joshua would sit outside that tent and be still and just sit and probably listen to conversations in there. So he was close to and able to still himself. And there's many examples of that throughout Scripture. One of my favorite is when the women went to the tomb and they wanted to just be near Jesus.
Yeah.
And they got there and he wasn't there. Well, he actually was there. He came out and talked to them. But he wasn't there the way they thought he was going to be there. So there was just this willingness to go be in his presence. And I'm talking about something that's part of our Christian history, going back to the ancient Christians, where they understood just being still and being, and you know, included in that is singing and worship and things like that. But they understood that we have to carve time out to be in the presence of God, because what they got from it wasn't just instructions to do things. They got the why and the understanding of God's heart when they did it.
Yeah.
They knew in their hearts why they needed to do it. It wasn't just something they had to do.
That's good, because sometimes I think that it's taking a risk of having that silence.
It is that's absolutely.
And having that God time.
Absolutely.
Because you have to go deeper.
Absolutely.
You have to take a look.
It is a risk.
Yeah.
It's for some people, the thing about risk is not everything's risky to everybody, but for some of us, it's like for some people just to talk about how they're feeling is risky.
Yes.
And for other people to be in to take, like, that's the idea of the Sabbath. It's risky not to have a day a week where we're not going to go work on stuff, and we're not going to go fix things when they break down, because we're actually trusting God instead of ourselves. That's the idea behind the Sabbath.
Oh, I'm guilty of that too.
Me too.
Trust God to fix things on the Sabbath.
Yeah, because
or any other time.
yeah,
Just,
well,
that's
yeah,
not
I
the
mean,
point. But,
yeah,
you know,
but I mean, there's you know, there's just so much research right now that supports the idea of a Sabbath, not just a Saturday or one day a week Sabbath, but that, like, you know, when you hear these things on the radio and they say, when you're working, every 20 minutes, get up and go stand and go look outside, and, you know, it'll refresh you. That's a type of Sabbath.
Right.
It's getting away from your work and replenishing yourself. So anyway, I'm just
taking a break.
But go do that with God.
Yeah. All right. So, is there anything else you want to talk about as far as risks, or before we move on to? I just want to see if you've got any workshops or anything coming up you want to tell the peeps about?
Well, I'm doing we are doing a marriage retreat in March, but it's full, so you can get on the waiting list if you want. It's in Monterey.
I've heard that the marriage retreats are amazing.
Yeah.
So when I get married,
yes, another risk.
Right.
Anyway,
and gotta find somebody to date first.
Doing a. Have you asked God for?
I've asked God. Oh, believe me, I've asked God.
Doing a transforming prayer training in March. In March as well. You go to the website.
Is that the same one that I went to years ago?
Probably.
Or a revised version of it?
Probably.
Because it was good.
Yeah. So that's. I think it's the 21st. It's Saturday. It's in March.
So
and it's on the website, thelifebridge.org.
Thelifebridge.org. And is that live streaming, or they have to be in the area?
So we have a group of people in Idaho that are setting up so they can live stream it. But I told them that they were trying to get me to come back there. That didn't work out. And so I said, well, you can live stream it. I just need you to handle the technical stuff.
Well, you would have to have the camera in your room.
Right.
Okay,
I got
so
plenty of cameras.
So anybody would be able to jump on that, though, and not just them. Right?
I'll look into that.
Because my audience is.
Yeah.
You guys, don't you think this would be cool? Yeah. Okay. What other?
That's the only thing that's coming to mind right now. I mean, we have other gatherings, but I can't recall the.
Okay.
You know.
Well, thelifebridge.org is the website.
And go to the events section.
Okay, in the events.
And, you know, we do what's called an intensive. I mean, you'll see a lot of things on there we do, but some of the stuff we do is done by scheduling it. And an intensive would be a 3 to 4 day intensive where you get transforming prayer. You go through, we do it primarily for married couples, so you can do it for an individual. But and, you know, typically we have people coming from out of the area. So,
Yeah, that's kind of like the cruise. It's like you just get away and it's going to be
Right,
intensive.
right.
Yeah, exactly. That's why it's a retreat.
Yeah.
Get stuff done.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool. All right, anything else to wrap it up? You good?
It's good, yeah.
Well, thank
Thank
you so
you.
much. This was a lot of fun. Right on. I appreciate that. All right, you guys, thank you so much for being, you know what I forgot to do?
What?
We totally forgot to take a break anywhere
Oh.
along the line.
Oh,
That's
well,
okay.
you can
All right.
have to.
I'll just,
You can put
I'll
a
just-
thing in there that says break.
okay. Okay, so here's me being a time traveler. Sorry about that abrupt break that we had about, let's see, 20 minutes ago. Anyway, all right, I appreciate you guys. Thank you for subscribing, liking, sharing with your friends. And until the next broadcast, stay spirit-centered. Bye-bye. Oh, wow, look at our lighting. We totally lost our lighting.
No.
Hey, we're in the dark.
We're good.
All right, hey.
I didn't know you played drums.
I really can't.
I noticed.
Spirit-centered business, spiritual principles, and business principles combined. If you're ready to align your destiny and discover the destiny of your business, join us. We are entrepreneurs, leaders, and business professionals who take the power of the spirit realm in our business seriously. We go beyond just consuming information. We participate, activate, and engage the supernatural with unbelievable results. If you want to gather with like-minded business professionals to activate spiritual principles and mastermind creative solutions to business challenges, Spirit-Centered Business is your tribe. Go to spiritcenteredbusiness.com to become a member today.